there, and welcome back to the channel. Today, Native Instruments, The Gentleman. I like this upright piano. It's a good sounding, well-recorded piano. Just like the Grandeur and the Maverick, which I've already reviewed, it's got an identical interface with the same controls. So I'm going to go through this instrument a lot faster. If you want all the details, watch the Grandeur episode. That has all the details about all the tone controls right here, the anatomy, and the space, which is a convolution reverb. I'm still going to give you a fair amount of detail, but there'll be more detail in that other episode. First of all, the tone. We have controls right here, quick controls, but we also have detailed controls, as we also have for the anatomy. We can make the tone softer or harder. You can think of that as duller and brighter. There's a lot of tone control here. Also, we have the lid position. We can have the lid full up like it is right now, or we can have it completely closed. That's going to dull down your piano. And unlike a grand piano where you have a half mast or a half position, you don't have that with an upright. For now, we'll leave it fully up, but we'll set the tone at its default value. You can control click, probably command click on a Mac, but I'm not a Maceteer, any of the controls to reset them to their default value. The equalizer, we turn it on right here, and we have control. Good amount of control there. Can get very boxy. The color here and the equalizer can be used separately and at the same time, and I think that's a very good idea. Tonal depth. We can have a more natural sound. We can have a more resonant sound. A more resonant sound might sound a little bit more pleasing now, especially if we pull it down just a little bit, because it kind of gives us a little bit of a reverb, a little bit of space. And we're not applying any reverb space right now. I want you to hear the dry sound from this piano before I add space at the end. We'll put this back to the default. Let's move on to the transients. We can get a very hard attack sound right here. Or we can have it as a more sustained sound. The low keys, for this, a picture's worth 1,000 words. This just gives us a bias on the low keys, either positively or negatively. And of course, this is in relation to the upper keys, so you can balance it the way you want. Compression, we got to turn it on to hear it. We've got many types that we can call up right here. Some of them have a pretty hard knee. Some of them are pretty smooth, just like this one right here. We're not going to hear anything until we have an amount. At a very low amount, we're going to have a low amount of compression, so we're still going to have quite a bit of dynamic range. If we compress it at 100%, we're essentially not going to have much dynamic range. It's essentially going to be a loud sound, but we will still have control over the tone, and by playing harder, we can get it to sound brighter. That's it for our tone, and there's a lot in there for you to play with. Next, we have our anatomy, and this is setting up the piano to respond to our touch, our controller, and it gives us some other options. Dynamic range. Let's take a look at dynamic range. This is going to work very much like our compressor. With no dynamic range, I'm going to have a fairly loud sound no matter how hard I play. I will still have control over the tone of the instrument, and if I play harder, it will be brighter. If I play softer, it will be duller, though the volume won't change that much. At the top of the range, I can play softly and get a soft velocity. If I play medium velocity notes, it's still going to sound pretty soft. In order to get hard velocities, I'm going to have to beat the living daylights out of my keyboard controller. Okay. Resonances. Resonances is talking about the sympathetic vibration of the strings within the piano. And that occurs when I'm pressing the pedal, and you can see the little light go on. And that lifts the damper away from the strings. Even the strings that I'm not playing are going to vibrate sympathetically with the other sound that I am making. Another good way to hear this sound is for me to play a chord and then turn the knob up and down while I'm holding down the pedal. You can hear the other strings sympathetically vibrating. The thing about resonance is a little bit goes a long way. A little bit can liven up your piano. Too much can make it sound muddy. The default's about right. In the detailed anatomy, we can up the overtones. In both the Grandeur and the Maverick, I can't really hear a lot of difference here, but maybe you can. I really don't hear a lot of difference there. Stereo image. Here we can hear a lot of difference. At least 2 mics were used to create this stereo image, obviously. You would need at least 2 mics. Playing lower notes will have a bias to our left ear. Playing higher notes will have a bias to our right ear. The center position is the way the instrument was recorded. If we take it all the way to the left, we have a mono signal. If we take it all the way to the right, we get an overemphasized stereo image. And I like this sound. And like I said in my first episode with the grandeur, some people will tell you it's just overemphasized. But I like it, and if you like it, there's no reason why you can't use it that way. Next we have keys. This just sets up the velocity curve for your controller and your type of play, how hard you like to press the keys. I like it linear, but we have choices. We can have softer curves, which means that even medium velocities will sound relatively soft, and you'll have to pound the keyboard to get those louder velocities. You get the reverse of that with the hardest velocities. Right here, we're going to find that even medium and medium low velocities are going to sound pretty loud. Let's hear that. Also related to this, we have silent key. All that silent key does is it doesn't sound keys that you press really softly. If you press them very softly, and I'm not sure what MIDI value that is, probably less than 10 or less than 5. If you look at the keyboard down here, I'm going to press some keys and I'm going to turn the silent key on, and you actually won't hear the keys because I'm going to try to press them very softly. And this is true of a real piano. If you press keys extraordinarily softly, there's not enough velocity in the note being pressed to trigger the hammer. It'll move a little bit, but not enough to make it strike the string. This is useful if you tend to play octaves and you accidentally press some bad notes. It can happen when your thumb is encroaching on another key and it presses that key, but at a very soft volume. So that's the idea behind this. Personally, I leave it off. As far as the pedaling goes, we have repedaling, which just allows you to extend the release samples with the pedal. Half pedaling will require a special pedal. What half pedaling does is it moves the dampers less than the full distance that they would usually be moved away from the strings. And when the strings vibrate, they're going to touch the dampers, and it's going to reduce their loudness, and it's also going to reduce the decay time. I personally don't use it, but if you've used it and you would like to use it, you can obviously use it. Release samples, very important. This is a mechanical fact of a piano. When you release the keys or the pedal and the dampers fall back against the strings, that takes a few milliseconds. Also, even after the dampers touch the strings, it takes a while for that sound to die down. And these are release samples. I'm overemphasizing it for you. Let's hear that. With them turned off, it's a very sharp decay. That sounds unnatural to me and not like a real piano. I like them on, but the default's -6, and I like it somewhere between -12 and -8. Next up, we have noises. These are not gimmicks, but generally I leave them off because I'm a composing, recording kind of guy, and I don't like any more clutter in my mix. It's hard enough to mix a cue as it is, so more clutter doesn't help. But I want to play these sounds for you. The hammer is just the mechanical movement of the hammers. Down at the low end of the register, you're not going to hear these because they blend in with the low note because they're a clunky sound. Actually, I hear it a lot more than I do when I was playing the Grandeur or the Maverick. So that's interesting. Here's the middle register and the upper register. Those are a lot more prominent than they were on the Grands that I've already reviewed. That's interesting. Here's the damper sound, and this is just when you press the pedal and the dampers move away from the strings. Kind of like the piano breathing a little bit there. Next we have the pedal sound, and this is just the mechanical sound of you pressing the pedal on the floor. As I've said in the other episodes, good pianos have dampening material, usually felt or some other kind of material around the pedal to help minimize this sound. If you have an older piano and the sound is bugging you, it's probably because that material is worn out. Might be time to replace that material, and generally you can do it yourself. Go pick up some felt at a craft store. Next we have the string sound, and this is just the dampers frictionally pulling the strings. After the dampers have set against the strings for any length of time, the little indentations start to appear in the dampers, and when you press the pedal, the strings kind of get pulled as the damper moves away. Here's that sound. Like I said, I leave these off. If I was going to leave any one on, it might be the string sound. If you're playing piano in the dark or in a darkened environment with some mood lighting, this can kind of give the illusion that you're playing a real piano. But it's up to you. Last but not least, in this section, we have the tuning, and we have our concert pitch 440 here. We can change the pitch slightly. This is useful for playing along with pre-recorded material that's just slightly off pitch. Stretch tuning and equal tuning. I'm not going to really get into this, but stretch tuning is how the instrument was recorded. So that's going to give you the most natural sound. And you can try the equal tuning if you wish to do so. That's it for the anatomy of our piano. Let's take a look at the space. These are convolution reverb. So first of all, we have to turn the space on. And all of these knobs and buttons and sliders are addressable with CC. I can right click, ask it to learn, and then I can move it with a slider on my controller. So the amount here is just a send control. You can think of it that way. The size is the size of the space, and these are convolution reverbs. And right now we have Concert Hall 1. And distance is the distance of the instrument, our piano, to the listener. And this is what you can think of as pre-delay. You might hear a little clicking while I'm moving these controls, and that's because I have my latency set so low because I like really fast response. If we click on this title here, we get a list of convolution reverbs, and they're all really good. They all sound great. This is a good sounding piano for an upright piano. Probably one of the best I've heard. It sounds so much more like a grand to me in many respects. It's hard to believe that what they recorded was an upright piano because it really does sound very good. In the other episodes, I created one or more other sounds, and the criticism I had was there's no presets here. A presets drop-down list with pop piano and country piano, cinematic piano, soft piano, ballad piano, that kind of thing. I know you can go over here and you can just go ahead and save as and save the instrument, and that's pretty quick to load up. I mean, it takes a few seconds. It's not that bad, but it would have been nice if it were right here. Right now, I'll go ahead and make a cinematic piano, and the characteristics for me of a cinematic piano are a huge amount of reverb. So we use this cathedral. This is what I used in the other ones. We'll up the amount. We want a huge size here. We're going to go ahead and make it a soft sound, and let's hear how that sounds. That is more reverb than I wanted. So that's a pretty good sound. I don't think it's necessarily the quintessential cinematic piano, but there's definitely plenty of control here for you to use. What I like about this piano is enough control to get the job done, but not so many parameters that it's just overwhelming. And if you're new to piano and you're just looking for a good practice piano, this is not a bad option. This is a good sounding upright piano. There's also one with Cuba, and I'll cover that when I do my review on Cuba, which is coming up. The retail price on this piano is $99. When it goes on sale, it's $49.50. At either of those prices, it's a good value. It's well recorded. And one thing I can appreciate is the Gentleman, the Maverick, and the Grandeur all have this identical interface of controls. The picture is different in the middle, but all the controls are identical. So once you learn one, you know all three, which is helpful. Obviously, different piano tone to begin with, so there's going to be some subtle differences when you add a certain amount of this tone or this amount of reverb, but it's helpful. I like this piano. I think it's probably the best upright piano I have in my collection. The Cuba is a close second, but this is number one. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hopefully this was helpful to you, and I do appreciate your time. Think about subscribing, or just subscribe. Don't think about it. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in another episode soon. Take care.